You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hey, this is John Preston, Marine combat veteran and Pacific Records recording artist. Just reaching out to have you check out our new album, Battle Cry, Songs of America's Heroes, an album featuring phenomenal other combat veteran artists like Scott Brown of the Scooter Brown Band, Ryan Weaver, Rowdy Johnson, just an incredible mix of people. This is all veterans telling our stories and our lives, and we're giving 100% of our proceeds to the Valkyrie Initiative to help veterans and first responders integrate back into society. I myself have battled with post-traumatic stress for many years and lost my own brother, a Marine Corps veteran, to suicide. I ask that you step with us and make this happen. We are in pre-order right now and release on March 17th. Go to iTunes, go to Amazon, buy. We plan on making the charts and making it at a very high level, and your support right now makes a difference. This is the release of my new song, Superman Falls, which is actually about the loss of my own brother, which happened last year, and I would love for everyone to check it out, to listen, and hopefully it'll make a difference in many lives.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
Here's George Foreman with InventHelp.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp has been helping inventors for more than 30 years and has sales offices nationwide. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas. If you have an idea and want to try to patent it and submit it to companies, you should call InventHelp today for free information.
Listen, I can't guarantee a company will be interested in your idea, but I believe every inventor deserves the opportunity to step into the ring and take their best shot. Put InventHelp in your corner.
To get your free inventor's information, call 1-800-353-6490. That's 1-800-353-6490. Again, 1-800-353-6490.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave. Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria.
Oh, a microphony.
And a phony at the mic.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Welcome to the Hardcore Patriot.
Oh, it's gonna be fun. We can stay up late, swap the manly stories, and in the morning,
this is dangerous, son. You gotta know how to handle it. One wrong move and you're done for.
And now, here's your host, Alan Ray.
I give up on it all. I just give up. I think we seriously have just lost our collective minds. My God, what is going on in this nation? Statues being torn down and overreactings. Calling for the founding fathers' statues to be torn down. It's out of control. It's out of control. Now we have a state senator, Marie Chappelle Nadel, who comes right out on Facebook and says she hopes President Trump gets assassinated. So Missouri state senator, really? Could you imagine the outrage, the screaming, the yelling, the newspapers just basically blowing up? If somebody during, and is it any coincidence, by the way, this is Missouri, if somebody during the whole Missouri episode there decided that they would call Barack Hussein Obama, President of the United States back then, for the assassination of President Obama, could you imagine the outrage? Could you imagine how people would have, it would have caused even more riots. Isn't this the same state senator? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is she the same one that got caught with a handgun in some of the Ferguson protests? Was that her? I might be wrong. I don't know. She is being investigated. The Secret Service is looking into her outrage, and she refuses to apologize. She's not going to apologize. Why? Because Donald Trump basically said that extremism on any side is wrong. We need to come together as a people. I can't see the failure of logic for that statement. The media has just gone off their rockers, saying that he should have specifically called out the white nationalists. So he did. And what did they do? He's not sincere. He should have done it right off the bat. Yeah, really, seriously, honestly, if Donald Trump would have ran out onto the White House lawn and screamed, "I am so sorry," and doused himself with gas and lit himself on fire, these same people would probably be screaming and yelling right now that he left a bigger carbon footprint while burning himself than what he should have, and they would have still been all over him. It's how ridiculous it's gotten. Seriously, I get online and I have a couple of different news sources. Flip, which is, you can pretty much set up to see which magazines you want to see, which articles you want to see. You can set yourself up, for politics and world politics, world events, national events, things like that. And there's a couple other Google News, Yahoo News, every one of them, every single one of them. When you turn to them, It is nothing but article after article after article after article after article blasting Donald Trump. Like he called for the people to riot in Charlottesville. Nobody in the media, which, by the way, it just proves beyond a shadow of a doubt. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that, A, the mainstream media are completely biased. Completely. And we'll get some news that proves that in a bit. And they're out to destroy this president no matter what. And again, I'm coming from somebody that I didn't vote for him. In fact, I don't really like him. I don't think he's what this country needed at this particular time. But you get to a point where the attacks are ridiculous. Some of them don't even make sense. Some are absolutely, I mean, it's just like, you're journalists? Really? And then, and for the people who bring out Flip magazine or Yahoo News or Google, the ones that edit it and put the stories out there, that's the only content they have. The only content they have. There is no other opinion in the United States, according to these people. You literally have to dig and dig and dig and dig to find any kind of news that's not an attack ad on Donald Trump. And I know better. I know there's articles out there. I know that there are some things going on other than Charlottesville in this nation. And quite honestly, I'm tired of that whole thing. I'm tired of it. There were extremists on all sides of that event, that mass stupidity that seized Charlottesville. And I literally, in digging around, I just, this out of control paradigm that the leftist media is trying to introduce into the United States to change us fundamentally from a society that is free, a society where you can be an individual, to some kind of hybrid socialist communist democracy they think is going to end up out of it. You literally have to dig around to try to find something other than the leftist opinion on anything. But find it I did. But I'm not surprised by this groupthink on the left, by this we're right no matter what happens, this whole ideology that if you're, I don't know, if you are one of these people that believe that all sides were guilty there, that you had extremists on the left and the right involved in Charlottesville, and this is why we had the problems we did, combined with the mayor trying to be something he's not and tell the police to stand down, allow the violence to happen, allow the out-of-control outrage, the scenes of chaos, which eventually led to the death of an American citizen. That guy should go on trial. The mayor of Charlottesville should go on trial. And I really don't want to talk too much about this today. I really don't, because quite honestly, I'm fed up with it. But what's going on here is really, you look at Antifa members and you start digging into who they are, what they are. You look into their social media bios and stuff like that, and darn near every one of them are Marxist-Leninists. They boast about it. They brag about it. Several of them bring out Marxist and Lenin references. It's like the Red Scare all over again. But anyone that doesn't buy into the left-wing hate is a Nazi. Anyone that doesn't buy into this left-wing hate, oh, you're a Nazi. And that's laughable at best. And anyone that doesn't buy into the alt-right hate is a liberal. Well, you're just one of them socialist Democrats. No, I'm not. I think that white nationalism, Nazism, if you will, which makes me laugh because these people wouldn't know a Nazi if they smacked them in the head. They really wouldn't. But this alt-right, and yeah, I'm going to use the word alt-left because it is, and it should be ULT, alt-left, like ultra-left. Communism, socialism is what we should be calling them. If you're on either one of these fringes and you're selling hate, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all. Why? Because there's proof beyond all way, shape, and form that this is not the norm. This is not normal. I go to work in one of the most culturally diverse and, yes, liberal cities probably in the United States. And there's a lot of people there that share my views of conservatism, individualism, that we're all created equal, and what we do with our lives defines us, and that we shouldn't have to have the government giving us a leg up when they think we need it, but yet what they're doing is short-circuiting us because they don't do anything without thinking about how many votes they can get. I guarantee you. And we'll get to that in a minute. The only article I could find out there that even came close to telling the truth about Charlottesville was one by Jonah Goldberg from the New York Post. And I'm going to read a little bit of it here, and kudos to Jonah, really. I mean, he tells it like it is. He comes right out and says, fighting Nazis is a good thing, but fighting Nazis doesn't necessarily make you or your cause good. By my lights, this is simply an obvious fact. Of course, you know, there's a lot of people like everybody on the left that really doesn't get it. And he goes on to say, the greatest Nazi killer of the 20th century was Joseph Stalin. He also killed millions of his own people and terrorized, oppressed, enslaved, or brutalized tens of millions more. Nazism was evil. Soviet communism was evil. It's fine to believe that Nazism was more evil than communism. That doesn't make communism good. Yet confusion on this point poised politics in America and abroad for generations. Part of the problem is psychological. There is a natural tendency to think that when people or movements hate each other, it must be because they're opposites. This assumption overlooks the fact that many, indeed most, of the great conflicts and hatreds in human history are derived from what Sigmund Freud calls the narcissism of minor differences. Most tribal hatreds are between very similar groups. The European wars of religion were between people who often shared the same language and culture, but differed on the correct way to practice the Christian faith. The Sunni-Shia split in the Muslim world is a source of great animosity between very similar people. The young communists and fascists fighting for power in the streets of 1920s Germany had far more in common with each other than they had with decent liberals or conservatives. As we understand those terms today, by the way. And the second part of the problem wasn't innocent confusion, but sinister propaganda. As Hitler solidified power and effectively outlawed the Communist Party of Germany, the Communist International abandoned its position that socialist and progressive groups that were disloyal to Moscow were fascist, and instead encouraged communists everywhere to build popular fronts against the common enemy, Nazism. See what he's going at here? You see where he is? He's saying there's really not a whole lot of difference between these white nationalist, skinhead, Nazi, ignorant yahoos down in that all congregated in Charlottesville, which, by the way, a lot of them probably came from a lot of different places, just to prove a point. There's not a lot of difference between them and these Marxist, Lenin, brainwashed, 18-year-old basement dwellers that claim their way is better. They're going to destroy fascism. They're going to destroy capitalism. Viva la communism. They haven't really studied communism. They haven't really studied what happens when a nation hands itself over to a government and leaves the door open for tyranny. They're not paying attention to what's going on in Venezuela, which socialism, as far as I'm concerned, is communism light. They've been brainwashed by these ignorant professors in these universities who claim to be the experts on things. They're not experts. They have no real life experience. All they have is academia. They've just built their views on the views of others and have never really stopped to think about what happens when their views are put into action. They totally disregard the fact that millions of people, millions, have been killed in the name of communism so that communism can take root. Communism is one of these styles of government, like socialism, that has to be forced on people. It has to be forced on the common citizen. It doesn't just happen naturally. It happens by people grabbing power and enforcing it on the common man, who, as we spoke about Monday, just wants to be left alone, just wants to make a living for their family. But I literally work in a place where all of these people with all these ideologies work together. Far right, far left, mid-right, mid-left, you name it. Black, white, Muslim, Chinese, Japanese, Asian, of all sorts, straight, gay. We all work in this big area. And you know what happens? Nothing, because we're not jerks. That's what it all boils down to. We're not jerks to each other. Yeah, we know we have differences. Yeah, maybe once in a while somebody will dig at somebody for a difference and they'll laugh. We'll all laugh. Why? Because we know we have those differences. We're just not jerks about it. And when you go out there with the belief, with the hubris that you've got it all figured out, my friend, you're dead wrong. Sometimes I don't even know if conservative individualism is what it's all about. I do know that it feels good to me and it works for me out here in the cornfields of southeastern Michigan. I don't want the government in my everyday life. In my world, the government paves the roads, makes sure that we're not getting invaded by a bunch of half-wit idiots coming from foreign shores, and regulates trade between states. That is it. And your state government pretty much makes sure that your neighbor doesn't infringe on your rights and you don't infringe on theirs. And we all get along. Now, what we're leaning towards in this nation right now, and it literally scares me to my very core, is we have a large group of people that are begging, pleading, screaming for a centralized federal government to take control of the entire United States and bring about socialism. And I'm trying to say, you don't want this. You really don't want this. Study history. You really don't want this. You really ought to just make it for your own. Yeah, the government is a necessary evil, because we do have people that try to take advantage of other people. I'm not going to deny there are large corporations out there that try to take advantage of people that do bad things, and they need to be slapped to the pavement. One of the problems with health care, and the reason health insurance is so expensive and health care is so expensive, is because you have insurance companies taking advantage of people. And every time the government steps up and puts out a whole bunch of regulations in the name of saving us from ourselves, it costs hospitals millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to get re-regulated, to get themselves in order so they pass inspections. I know this for a fact. It's what my wife does for a living. She works for a company that does that. Every time the Nuclear Regulatory Commission comes out and says, well, we're going to change this, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, every one of these hospitals in the area has to go through all kinds of paperwork, all kinds of testing, and it costs them a lot of money. Physicists are not cheap. They make a lot of money. They should. They go to college for a long time to learn their trade. And they're a very important part of society. But the problem is some of the regulations are redundant, some of them are unnecessary. It's just like cars. Cars are the same way. Every time the EPA comes out with a bunch of oddball, screwball regulations, it costs car companies millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. And the car companies look at the EPA and go, you know what? We're not going to do this stuff unless we get funding from the government. Guess where that funding comes from? Your pocket. And now we got people out there, individuals, millions of them, quite a few millions, that are saying, I want my life funded by the government. You should pay for me. Where's the money going to come from? I'll tell you where the money's going to come from. Do you have a job? Do you make a living? The money's going to come from you. Thank you very much. And this is what I try to tell people, that and this is all part of what I'm talking about with this Antifa, and you know, this one really kind of excludes the Black Lives Matter Club, because they're basically just anti-white at this point in time. They'll prove themselves for what they really are eventually, so I'm just going to leave them alone. I'm just not even going to include them in the conversation. But I will tell them that this warning goes out to them too. This warning goes out to them too. When you start paying for other people's life, when you pay for their livelihood and they can just sit back and do nothing, you're training a generation of people who are going to train their kids that they can do this. And the population of that is going to grow and grow and grow. And pretty soon, the government is going to demand so much money out of you that it's not really financially feasible for you to go out and get a job. So you might as well just give it up and become a ward of the state. Pretty soon the state goes broke. It happens all the time. That's what socialism does. It rapes countries. And I'm going to tell you another thing too. And this one boggles my mind. I just don't get it. When you go after these large corporations and you want them to, quote, pay their fair share of taxes. Now, think this through with me. This is logic. Think this through with me. I know it's hard. And I know that, you know, I think the listeners that I have here are pretty smart. They're pretty intelligent. But if you're trying to debate this with somebody else, oh, it's going to make them think. And they don't want to think, because if they figure this out, it's going to destroy their logic. If you're after these big corporations to pay more taxes, to pay their fair share of the taxes, this is what you're doing, okay? If I own, let's say I own General Motors, one of the biggest corporations in America, and the government comes to me and says, you have not been paying your fair share of taxes, we're going to up your taxes by 35%. Now, what, as the CEO of General Motors, now granted, I'm the CEO of General Motors in this scenario, I'm responsible for my shareholders to make a profit. I'm responsible for workers to keep working, the cars to keep coming out. And you come to me and said, my taxes are going to go up X amount %. What am I going to do? Well, am I just going to A, roll over and say, you know, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm going to pay more taxes. Well, where's the money going to come from? Is it going to come from the CEO and the corporate leadership? No. If you want decent leadership, it costs money. They're not going to give up their pay. Is it going to come from the union workers down there pooping out these cars every few seconds? Ha ha ha. No, that's not going to happen. If you were to go down there and say, hey, you know what? They cranked up our taxes, so we're going to have to cut your pay. Sorry. You think that's going to go over well? You think that's going to go over good? Well, then you're a special kind of stupid if you think that's going to happen. Are they going to cut the quality of the car? Sometimes, yes, they will. A little hidden secret that you, my dear listener, may or may not know, that I do because I've been in this ridiculous business for 30 years, is especially people like Ford, General Motors, the big three, they go to their suppliers all the time that makes the parts that they put on the cars that's not part of their corporation and say, you need to cut your expenses by X amount of dollars. They do it almost every year. And you know what suffers? The part. The part suffers because the people aren't going to, or they lay people off. That's the other option. General Motors might look and say, well, we're going to have to lay a few thousand people off so we can save money to pay this, and then we'll put all these other people on overtime. They'll work ridiculous hours. The quality of the vehicles will go down because we have an exhausted workforce. Or they're going to jack the price of the vehicle up. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, well, I guess we'll raise the price of the vehicle up X amount of percent or Y amount of a percent to pay the X amount of taxes. And maybe a few extra points, too, so that we can line our pockets a little bit more. And guess who's paying for the vehicle? You, the consumer. You are literally paying the taxes for the big corporations. Ooh, now wait a minute. You didn't think about that, did you? You see, that's what happens when government cronyism and socialism and true fascism, the takeover of companies, that's what happens when the government gets involved in big businesses and even small businesses when they say they have to pay more taxes. They're either going to take it out on the common person, the worker, the employee, not pay them as much, lay them off, whatever, or they're going to jack up the price of their product. And when you jack up the price of your product, you take a risk of your business folding because it gets to a point where people look at it and go, it's not worth that price anymore. And they walk away. And your salespeople can't sit there and go, but it has to be this high because we got to pay these taxes. That's not an excuse. That's not an excuse. People are going to look at it and go, no. So it's going to be taken out on either the worker or the product, not the evil, wealthy, capitalist business owners. It's not how it happens. And if you think it happens that way, go back to school, learn something, read a book, turn the TV off. But it all boils down to this. I don't support either one of the extremists in the whole Nazi versus Antifa thing. They're two sides of an evil coin. They are just simply two sides of an evil coin. And their ideologies aren't that different from each other. They're really not. If you really get down to brass tacks, they're all haters. They're all idiots. They're all people that want to control you. One side's an authoritarian side, the other side's a totalitarian side. So I've ranted for almost a half hour now about this stuff, and I really didn't want to get off on a tangent with this idiocracy in Charlottesville. But when I come back, we're going to actually talk about some other things, some things that are actually vitally important to you and yours. I'm Alan Ray, the Hardcore Patriot. Welcome to my show. I'll be back in a moment. In personalliberty.com, an article came out today, and pretty much stated that while everybody in the whole nation was focused on the idiocracy in Charlottesville, something happened. Something happened that was pretty much going to destroy this whole Russian collusion thing that the left has been beating the drum on ever since Donald Trump won. A report came out from The Nation, The Nation's Patrick Lawrence published a lengthy report stating Democrats' dream of Russian hacking is extremely implausible. And I want to read a little bit of this report. Let me get it here so I can actually see it. It says the Nation's Patrick Lawrence on Thursday published a lengthy report based on information gathered by a bevy of computer experts and former National Security Agency insiders. The report in the publication, not exactly known for its right-leaning sympathies, reached the conclusion that the Democrat establishment's theory that Russian hacked servers at the Democratic National Committee is extremely implausible. The three main takeaways of the Nation's report is, one, it was compiled from information provided by highly qualified sources, many of whom formerly worked for the government spy agencies and major tech companies. Two, it concludes that the government's official story for how Russia hacked the DNC is technologically impossible. And three, it warns that some of the very people telling us what to believe about the Russia hacking scandal work for agencies which exist solely to spread disinformation to bend popular opinion to U.S. government will. But nobody's talking about this piece. Nobody's talking about it. We're too busy trying to decry one side or other about, who's guilty, the white supremacists or the communists. Right in the middle of all of this report comes out, and it's going to get swept under the rug, I guarantee you, that the whole Russian collusion thing or the whole Russian hacking thing from the DNC is bogus. It's almost completely impossible. And it pretty much coincides and it jives with the original, and a couple of people have come out over the past 6 months saying that it was an inside leak. All those emails from Hillary Rodham Clinton, all the stuff from the DNC, all the things that pretty much cost them the election was from an inside leak within the DNC. Do we know anybody lately that's been arrested for, I don't know, their connection with the DNC servers? Maybe somebody that was, out there doing something that wasn't very legal and then trying to flee the country. Somebody that, maybe Debbie Wasserman Schultz employed. I don't know if it's going to lead to this or not. I don't know if it's true or not. But you can't help but wonder if that's where this is all going to go. You can't help but wonder if this is exactly why they went after Awan, why they arrested him at the airport trying to flee the country. I mean, come on, people. You're paying an IT guy $160,000 a year. You're paying members of his family an additional $100,000+ a year. Millions of dollars over the past few years went to his whole family. And then he is in the background having access to all of your email, all your files, everything like that, until he got caught in February and released. And then Debbie Wasserman Schultz kept him on as an advisor. What was he advising her about? How to make more money and political power by screwing up the DNC? I don't know. This all stinks. It stinks to high heaven. We're so busy being focused on 0.001% of the population being extremists, that we're missing one of the biggest news stories going out there. We're not putting two and two together. We're being distracted from the corruption that's within the DNC right now. And I'm looking at the DNC, but you know what? I'm sorry, GOP's not much better. When they go at each other during an election cycle, it's Katie bar the door. No holds barred, big time wrestling between the two major parties. The Democrats are just mad because their cheating didn't work. Who knows? I mean, really, honestly, if we were to really find out exactly what happened with the DNC servers, I imagine some money changed hands. I imagine somebody paid somebody to get all kinds of information. You know, money is a very powerful motivator. And if this Awan guy is getting paid $160,000 just for being an IT guy, and he's that greedy, he's double billing the DNC, double billing the government for services and products. Who's to say somebody working maybe third party for the GOP didn't pay him a couple of $1 million to hand over some information? What I would really like to know, what I'd really like to see is an actual investigation, an actual open and honest investigation of what really went on during that election. You would probably be surprised at some of the people that would get strung up for it. Because, see, I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of government corruption as a whole. And I've even got another, the IRS scandal. You remember the IRS scandal, right? And this is the thing. I had to dig for this information. Because I didn't want my entire show to be about the stupidity in Charlottesville and the whole, you know, you're a racist, well, you're a communist, well, you're a white supremacist, well, you're this and you're that. I didn't want the whole show to be about that. I'm tired of that. But I had to dig for some things. One of the articles I came up with is the IRS scandal. The judge in charge of this IRS investigation, he ordered the IRS to name specific employees the agency blames for targeting Tea Party groups, for intrusive scrutiny and targeting them. He wants the specific people who targeted these Tea Party groups and other conservative groups that the IRS targeted during the IRS scandal. Remember Lois Lerner and all this stuff? He wants names. The IRS has been stalling this investigation, stalling this case, pretty much since May of 2013. They're not handing paperwork over. They're not cooperating with the Department of Justice. And this judge basically just laid the smackdown on him. He said, no, I want specifics. I want the names. He's, in his own words, he says, lay it on the line. Put it out there. That's what he told the attorneys for the IRS. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it because if they do, this whole paper trail is going to go right back to guess who? The President of the United States. Lois Lerner should be in prison right now. I mean, that just goes without saying. And remember, if you followed the Hardcore Patriot for more than a couple of episodes, you know that I rail sometimes about points of tyranny, about these unelected bureaucracies acting as the minions of the elected official. But the elected official can wash their hands of them. You know, they can make some suggestions, some hints, some behind-the-scenes, off-the-record recommendations, and send these unelected minions after groups of American citizens or a single American citizen. And these bureaucracies don't have to answer to anybody because, hey, we're just doing, this is our policy. We're just doing what our policy is. The elected official's not going to get strung out to dry on it unless somebody comes forward with irrevocable proof saying, this guy told me I had to do it. And that's why you have this IRS debacle here. Somebody, and I guarantee you it wasn't a conservative, looked at the Tea Party movement, looked at some of these people that said, hey, we want more freedom, less taxes. You already have enough of our money. And they said, oh, no. We're going to take these people down. We're going to start a propaganda war saying they're all skinheads and, Nazis and white supremacists, which was not true because the original Tea Party was a lot of different people. In fact, some of them were Democrats that are also tired of having their money taken from them. And they were gaining a lot of ground really quickly because they were grassroots. And then they were taken over. They were taken over by the GOP and milked. They were milked and watered down to the point now where they're hardly even recognizable. It was a scary movement if you were an elected official on either side. And what's funny, Laura Connor, the Justice Department lawyer defending the IRS, said the inquiries that this judge put on them would absorb too much time and effort with no evidence that they would produce any new evidence. She said the United States should not be held to respond to far-reaching inquiries. Really? So Judge Walton came down and wrote his own inquiries for the IRS. He asked the tax agency, why hide the ball? If there's nothing there, there's nothing there. But see, the IRS doesn't want to come out. They don't want to come out with the truth, because if they do come out with the truth is going to be something that the American people, the American public, can't handle. There will be uprisings because, quite honestly, let's face it, people, the IRS is a militant wing of the government that turns its guns, not physical guns, unless sometimes, there's a few of them that carry, they go after the people of the United States. They're not held to the same standards of the Department of Justice or any police official, any court. You don't have the right to be innocent until proven guilty when it comes to the IRS. If they suspect, all they have to do is look at you and say, yeah, this guy's hiding something. They could repossess anything you have. And then you have to fight to get it back. You have to fight to say, I'm not guilty. And providing evidence is all on your side. And even if you do provide evidence, sometimes they still fine you. It is one of the most tyrannical bureaucracies this government has. And this judge is calling them out, and how dare him? How dare him call the IRS out? See, this is the type of thing that you, patriot, conservative individual, and the Democrat, neo-socialist, liberal, and Black Lives Matter, and Antifa, and KKK, and all the fringe elements of society, and every single one of us, from sea to shining sea, should all of a sudden stop and look at what's going on and say, hey, you know what? We do want to know the truth, IRS. Because if they're targeting one group, they'll target another group. Guaranteed. See, they don't want you and I, the American citizen, to know this kind of thing is going on, that this court case is in this type of a brawl, and that the IRS is hiding evidence and refusing to cooperate. Because if we did, the normal people, I'm talking to you normal people now, not you fringe element idiots of society, if the normal people, the 350 million of us, let's give the fringe idiots the benefit of the doubt. Let's say out of the 350 million, 325 million are actual normal people. Whether their ideologies and whether their politics are left or right or in the middle or whatever. 325 million people all of a sudden turning to the IRS and going, what do you mean you're not going to cooperate? What do you mean you're targeting groups? What do you mean that, you're not going to bring out the individuals that are responsible for targeting a group? Well, if this happens, the government's got a problem. It's got a big problem. Because if you get both sides asking the same questions, and for a few moments setting their differences aside and saying, this is tyranny, you need to cooperate, the government has to produce. If the government doesn't produce, they're going to have problems. The people in power are going to lose their power. The two-party system they're in jeopardy of being destroyed, basically. New parties will arise to take their places. I just get the feeling, I'm trying not to be all tinfoil hat, I just get the feeling that this is why the propaganda machine in D.C. tries to keep us at each other's throats. And this is one of the reasons. This is inexcusable. I don't care if you're the biggest neo-socialist liberal on the planet. for a government bureaucracy to target one group should scare you half to death, because if it targets one group, it's going to target another group. And if it targets another group, it's going to target another group. Your group may be next. And there is no, well, they deserve it. There is no, they deserve it on this. Sorry, you don't get to play that card on this particular instance. This is not good for any American, period. Moving on. Remember Operation Choke Point? You may or may not have remembered it. I do, because I thought it was the most ignorant thing in the world. Operation Choke Point basically threw a lot of hurdles at businesses like, I don't know, gun shops, ammunition companies, businesses that Barack Hussein Obama did not like. So he issued this executive order, and he called it Operation Choke Point, that discouraged banks from doing businesses with companies, payday lenders, gun retailers, people like that. He made it very hard to get those businesses off the ground. Well, the Justice Department has committed to ending that controversial Obama-era program. And that's a big victory for the GOP. You're not going to hear about it. It's not going to make a lot of news. Why? We're too busy tearing down statues like a bunch of little panty wastes out there. That's why. In a letter to House Judiciary Chairman Bob Goodlatte, and this is from the Politico, Assistant Attorney General Stephen Boyd referred to the program as a misguided initiative. It says, we share your view that law-abiding businesses should not be targeted simply for operating in an industry that a particular administration might disfavor. Oh, that's called tyranny, by the way. Just so you know, that's synonymous for, hey, this was pretty much a tyrannical policy. Enforcement decisions should always be made based on facts and the applicable law. Gasp. Really? Really? Enforcement decisions should always be made based on facts and the applicable law? That should be, like, inscribed in the Department of Justice. That should be like a mantra. You know, enforcement decisions made based on facts and the applicable law? Like people coming into the country illegally? Like, oh, I don't know, the freedom of speech, the freedom to defend yourself, applicable laws, you know? It goes on to say, we reiterate that the department will not discourage the provisions of financial services to lawful industries, including businesses engaged in short-term lending and firearms-related activities. The Justice Department confirmed the letter was authentic, but declined to comment further. You know, and people forget what we just came off of. And let's just have an honest discussion about this. The backlash we're seeing today, the alt-right backlash that's leading to the alt-left, and I mean ULT left, the ultra-left, communist, socialist, people that think they're owed a living because their great-great-grandparents may or may not have been slaves, even though there was only, 5% of Southerners that even owned other people. All of these extreme elements, when the media glorifies them, all it basically does is it promotes hatred. It promotes racism. And the left hasn't figured it out yet. They really haven't figured out what's going on. But let's look at reality for a moment. And I really don't want to bring this up again, but if you look at it, the left is jumping on this Charlottesville insanity with a laser-like focus on one point and one point only. That if you do anything outside of specifically targeting and disavowing the alt-right, the white supremacists, the Nazis, any rational thinking human being already disavows these people. Like me, they're idiots. They're fringe elements of society. If somebody cracks their skull, they kind of get what they deserve. We all kind of understand that. But the left takes it a step further. They take it a step further. If you're looking at the big picture and you call out other extremists that came there for the sole purpose of starting violence, they called them the anti-protesters, but we know what they are. We know what fringe group. They stirred up normal citizens. You know, and yeah, they use some logic. Yeah, those people are Nazis, haters. They want the white race, supposedly, to take over the United States. But they're such a small percent that they're distasteful to society. It would have been better off just to turn a bunch of video cameras on them and say, this is what these people want. Isn't that sad and that pathetic? And then walked away from them, shaking their heads, until they lose steam and disappear back into their little crevices. But no. The problem is, if you looked at the big picture and all of the extremism, the extremists that were present in Charlottesville, and you call the whole thing out, well, then you're a Nazi. And they're doing this for one reason only. And it's rampant all the way through the DNC. Elizabeth Warren, you name it, every one of them. They're doing it to win votes. But are they going to win votes? Will they win votes? You see, they're going on the premise that, one, they think people are stupid. Two, they think people have short memories. And three, that people will forget that they once again insulted the overwhelming majority of their own voters. Most people believe that Antifa are extremists, that there are good people in Black Lives Matter. I'm sure there's people with their hearts in the right place, trying to save their brothers and sisters. That's fine. But there's extremists running the organization, trying to make it violent, militant, trying to be anti-white. But you're not going to hear anybody call them out. You're not going to hear anybody call out Antifa on the DNC, the communists, socialists, Marxist worshipers. You're not going to hear them call them out. Because they went after something that the left perceives as a right-wing problem. Just because they back Donald Trump. And it's not going to gain them any votes. It's basically going to turn more and more people away from them. They're trying to destroy an entire society based on a few people. It's the exact reasoning that these same Democrats, their grandparents and great-grandparents, used to try to destroy the blacks of their days. That the blacks were inferior. They're using it on people who support just trying to exist. The people that look at the extremists and say all of these people are extremists, they're calling them idiots. They're calling them impure. They're basically referring to them as lesser people because they see the big picture. They're insulting them left and right. They're doing it because they think it's going to cause them all of a sudden to gain votes, to get power back. They haven't learned that this identity politics insanity that they're on, this train that they're on, has derailed a long time ago. That using an extremist and saying this is the example of the entire party is insane. Or being an extremist and expecting everybody to follow you. Being that socialist, hardcore socialist, and expecting everybody to follow you. I'm looking at you, Elizabeth Warren. That's not going to get you any votes. It's just going to make people hate you more. And it's like that's what they want, is dissension and hate throughout this whole nation. If you're on either side of this and that's what you want, get off my porch. Get out of my front yard. I'm Alan Ray, the Hardcore Patriot. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to talk again soon. Hopefully hopefully, we'll have something, anything, besides this idiocracy going on to discuss in length. God bless you. Have a great weekend. And God bless America.
You can find Alan Ray on Twitter at 2cynical65 or at the Atomic Doghouse 1965.wordpress.com. Thank you for listening to The Hardcore Patriot.